All right, how are you guys? I hope you guys are good. Okay, so as some of you may already know, Lindsay Clancy was arraigned today. Now, I had questions from the beginning about this woman and the claim that she was in a psychosis when she did what she did to her children. Well, we are going to check out some of the arraignment, and I'm just going to give you a thing or two before we start. The first thing that she said when she came to, when she woke up, the first thing that she said was, "Do I need an attorney? Do I need an attorney?" She knew when she woke up, she knew that she had killed her children. And the first thing that she said when she woke up was, "Do I need an attorney?" So she had enough clarity to already be worrying about her own defense after knowing what she did. This woman was not in a state of psychosis when this crime was committed. So we're gonna watch some of this, some of her arraignment right here, and then we'll discuss it after. All right. Everybody, when you come in, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clancy. At any point in time, if you needed to speak to your attorney, you can indicate that you'd like to speak to your attorney, and we can make arrangements to go off record where you would be able to have a private call with your attorney if that became necessary. Very good. I will first here, I've had a chance to review the court filing in its entirety. I have had a chance, there were documentation from a treating surgeon, as well as some letters that were also submitted to the court. I have had a chance to review all of those documents. Commonwealth, I'll take from you first.
Your Honor, I apologize, excuse me, counsel. Your Honor, I would request, much like we do many times with an identification issue, that rather than have the Zoom focus directly on her, you know she can hear, you know that she's able to understand what's going on based on the response by the court officer. I'd ask if they could just avert the camera somewhat so that she's not constantly center of that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. Given the arrangements, I think it's fine the way it is. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, shall I arraign this young lady?
Yes, you may proceed with arraignment, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Clancy, on docket 2359 CR 153, the court has a complaint charging you under 265 section 1, count 1 murder, juvenile 1. Count 2, 265 section 1, murder, juvenile 2. Count 3, 265 15D big A, strangulation or suffocation, juvenile 1. Count 4, 265 15D big A, strangulation, suffocation, juvenile 2. Count 5, 265 15D big A, strangulation or suffocation, juvenile 3. Count 6, 265 15A big A, assault and battery, dangerous weapon, two-way exercise rope, juvenile 1. Count 7, assault and battery, 265 15A with a dangerous weapon, two-wit exercise rope, juvenile 2. And count 8, 265 15A, assault and battery, dangerous weapon, exercise rope, two-wit, juvenile 3. Ma'am, a plea of not guilty will be entered. Please be advised while this case is pending, any violation of state, federal, or local law may result in bail being revoked and be held without bail.
Commonwealth, I'll hear from you first.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth is requesting that the defendant be held without bail based on the facts of the case, the strength of the Commonwealth's case, and the potential penalty. On Friday, January 27th, 2023, using an erasable whiteboard because she was still temporarily intubated, one of the first questions that Lindsay Clancy asked was, "Do I need an attorney?" She knew that she had murdered her children, and she had the clarity, focus, and mental acumen to focus on protecting her own rights and interests. The following is a summary of the events that led to the murders of Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and Callan Clancy. On the morning of Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, the defendant took her 5-year-old daughter, Cora, to the pediatrician's for an appointment. She interacted with a receptionist, nursing staff, and a doctor. There were apparently no issues with the defendant's demeanor or behavior as she completed the appointment and was allowed to leave with Cora without any issues or concerns. When she returned home, she went outside with Cora and her 3-year-old son, Dawson, to play in the snow. They built a snowman. The defendant sent photos to her mother and to the defendant, to her husband. She texted with them. Nothing in the text was out of the ordinary or any sign of any distress or trouble. Back inside later that day at 4:02 p.m., the defendant searched on her phone Kids Miralax. She then searched at Takeout 3V via her cell phone at 4:13 p.m. Immediately after doing that, she used Apple Maps on her phone to determine how long it would take someone to drive from her home in Duxbury to 3V restaurant in Plymouth.
All right, I'm going to pause that right there for a second. This woman was fine. Earlier that day, she took her daughter to a doctor's appointment where she interacted with the doctor, nurses, other people. She was totally fine. She went home, played with her kids in the snow. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. She was totally fine. Okay. She looked up on her phone how long, she searched this, how long it would take for somebody to drive from her home in Duxbury to the restaurant 3V. She knew exactly how long that was going to take. She did that for a reason. She asked her husband to drive to 3V to go pick up food. That she planned this. Okay, this was a planned thing. This was not an erratic slip of the moment thing. She sent her husband out of the house, and she had a plan. Allegedly.
So she would know how long someone would be gone if they ran that errand. She next went on the CVS website at 4:47 p.m. and then called CVS on Summer Street in Kingston. She spoke to the manager of CVS and asked if they had the Kids Miralax. The manager told her no, but they had other similar medications. According to the manager of CVS, her voice did not sound slurred or impaired in any way. She had no trouble understanding the defendant, and it was a perfectly normal conversation. At 4:53 p.m., the defendant texted her husband, who was working in his home office in their basement. She texted, "Any chance you want to do takeout from 3V? I didn't cook anything. It's been a long day." This was an unusual request, as when the family ordered takeout, they'd usually go somewhere closer to home, but it was a place that they had been in the past. Patrick Clancy texted back yes, and then the defendant asked him to check the menu. At 5:06 p.m., the husband texted the defendant asking what she was going to get. She responded, "A Mediterranean power bowl." She spelled it correctly, and it was something that was on the menu. He then told her that he wanted the scallop and pork belly risotto. At 5:10 p.m., the defendant called 3V Restaurant to place the order. She got the order correct. She gave the correct name for pickup, Patrick. The hostess who took the call said there was nothing out of the ordinary about this call. She was able to understand the defendant, that her voice was not slurred or impaired in any way. At 5:15 p.m., Patrick Clancy headed out the door to run these errands at the defendant's request. As he left, she texted him Pedialyte liquid stool softener. Surveillance footage shows Mr. Clancy at CVS on Summer Street in Kingston at 5:32 p.m. He goes to the medication aisle, the children's medication aisle. Phone records show that he called the defendant at 5:33 p.m. and she did not answer the phone. She then calls him back at 5:34 p.m. and the call lasted 14 seconds. He's there at the store unsure of which medication to get, and she tells him exactly what she wants. He had no issues communicating with her. It was a completely normal call, although he did mention that she seemed like she was in the middle of something. He is on surveillance footage during this time, exiting that aisle and appeared to be using his phone. He then heads to the register, makes his purchase, and leaves the store at 5:37 p.m. He's next seen on footage at 3V Restaurant at 5:54 p.m. He picks up the food and he's out of there within a minute. When he arrives home, the first thing he noticed was the silence. He did not see or hear the defendant or the children. He actually...
Okay, now I just wanted to pause this for a second. So in that in that previous article that I had read you guys, it had said that the first responders found the children. That is incorrect. Patrick is the one who found the children. Okay, so it's going to get to that, but I just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Called her cell phone at 6:09 p.m. looking for them, and she did not answer. He went to their bedroom on the second floor and the door was locked. He was able to open it, and when he looked inside, he saw blood on the floor in front of a full-length mirror and the window open. He immediately runs downstairs and into the backyard, where he finds the defendant laying on the ground. She appeared to have cuts on her wrists and neck, but he stated to 911 that those wounds were no longer bleeding.
Okay, now that's another thing that should give you guys a clue. Those cuts that she had, the lacerations that she had on her wrist and on her neck they were so superficial that they were not even bleeding at the time that he found her, which we know was 25 minutes. I mean, again, she was not in a state of psychosis because she knows exactly what she did. She woke up saying exactly what she knew, everything. Just remember that the first thing that she asked for was a freaking attorney. Okay? But she was a nurse. If she really wanted to hurt herself, she would have known exactly what to do and exactly where to do it. They were not even deep enough cuts that they were still bleeding when he found her 25 minutes after he had left the house. Right? So just remember that.
She was conscious. He called 911. During this time, he asked the defendant, "What did you do?" She responded to him, "I tried to kill myself and jumped out the window." During the 911 call, Patrick can be heard asking the defendant, "Where are the kids?" He later told police that she replied, "In the basement." So immediately after this happened, she knew what she had done and she knew where the kids were. When EMS arrived, he asked them to stay with her so he could go find his kids. The 911 call kept going. Patrick can be heard on the 911 call entering the home and heading to the basement. At one point, he calls out, "Guys." He can then be heard screaming in agony and shock as he found his children. His screams seem to get louder and more agonized as the time passes. Cora and Callan were on the floor in the den area of the finished basement, which is to the left when you walk down the stairs, while Dawson was alone on the floor in his father's home office, which is to the right when you go down the stairs. Each child still had the exercise band that was used to strangle them tied around their necks when their father found them. Dawson and Callan were face down on the floor. Cora was on her side with her torso turned towards the floor. He removed the bands and begged them to breathe. He continued to scream uncontrollably and screamed for officers to come to the basement. The dispatchers are hearing this and they send help down to the basement. And when they encounter Patrick, he yells out, "She killed the kids." The police rushed the children to ambulances that brought them to the hospital. And unfortunately, Cora and Dawson were declared dead at the hospital. Callan was med-flighted to Boston Children's Hospital. Medical staff was able to restart his pulse, but not his brain activity. He was placed on life support for several days before passing away. The defendant was transported to South Shore Hospital and then to a Boston area hospital where she remains. She sustained several broken bones in her back and her rib cage. The police were able to find several notebooks in the defendant's home pursuant to a search warrant, and also notes on her phone that were similar to journal entries. In the months, weeks, and days preceding January 24th, 2023, the defendant meticulously detailed her daily activities, her children's lives, her mental state, and her medication use. Her writing was clear, precise, and articulate. She never indicated that she was hallucinating, delusional, or had disordered thoughts or speech. In all of her writing, she appears to know who she is, where she is, the date, and with whom she's interacted. She wrote a note on her phone the day before killing the children, stating that she had, quote, a touch of postpartum anxiety, end quote, around returning to work. She wrote that her psychiatrist had prescribed medication to help her. The defendant was initially diagnosed, according to her husband, with generalized anxiety disorder. She was then evaluated at the Women and Infant Center for Women's Behavioral Health in Providence, Rhode Island on December 20th, 2022. There, after an evaluation, she was told in the presence of her husband that, by psychiatrists, that she did not have postpartum depression and that she had no symptoms of postpartum depression.
Okay, I want to pause that right there for a second, because this is exactly what I was talking about the other day in my other video. Now, postpartum is a real thing. I understand that. But it's the people that claim to have it. It's the people that use it as an excuse for something that they did that really piss me off, that really ruin it for everybody else that really does suffer from this illness. I mean, she was literally told by a psychiatrist that she did not have postpartum depression. She did not have any symptoms of postpartum depression. Her husband was right there when she was told this. So why everybody is going around blaming it on postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis is beyond me. This woman knew what she did. She planned on doing this. She sent her husband out of the home so she could do this. And people just think about the people that donated all that money, right? To help her with her defense, because everybody felt so bad for her. It was, everybody was giving her sympathy. And then you find out today that she had actually planned this. This was not a slip of the mind. This was not a slip of reality. She was totally aware of what she was doing the entire time she was doing it. And you know what's really crazy is she goes on to say in her journal entries that she wants to have more children eventually. I'm sorry, what? But again, and this brings me right back to her husband was right there when they were both told that she did not have postpartum depression and she did not have postpartum psychosis. She didn't even have any of the symptoms for postpartum depression. Okay? So he knows she does not have that. From his own statements through this, she's going to tell you that he says his wife was totally fine. I mean, her parents were just there. I'm sorry, I don't know if it was her parents or his parents, but they were just there on the 21st. Everything was totally normal. I mean, it's crazy. And not for nothing. But it sucks that this is what she chose to do. And she chose to do it and blame something that she doesn't even have, that real women, suffer with. And everybody felt so bad for her, and she got all this compassion. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. All right, let me go back. Let me finish this for you guys.
She wrote in her journal that at times she had suicidal ideation in December of 2022. And she also told her husband that she had suicidal thoughts and on one occasion had thoughts of harming her children. But she did not write or voice those thoughts after a stay at McLean Hospital. When she had those thoughts, she consulted with a psychiatrist and with her husband, and then she committed herself to McLean Hospital on January 1st, 2023. She was discharged by the hospital on January 5th, 2023. And the hospital did not file any paperwork at that time attempting to have her committed as a danger to herself or others. She also kept meticulous and detailed daily medication logs in a diary that she wrote. She detailed that she had difficulties with each of the medications that were prescribed to her. And when she had issues with those medications, she detailed how her doctor had her stop that medication or wean off of it and then try something else. They were trying different medications to see what would work for her, what would benefit her. According to her husband, she was never on more than 4 to 5 medications at one time. And at the time of the murder, she was taking only 3 medications. And he said to the police that she always took the medications as prescribed. After her stay at McLean, the defendant appeared to be getting better, according to her husband. She slept well, interacted with friends and family. She went out with her kids and husband to places like the Kingsbury Club in Duxbury, the Charlie Horse Restaurant, the Museum of Science in Boston, the Cape Codder down the Cape, interacting with her family and the public without any apparent difficulties. She even stayed alone with the children on several occasions without any issues in January of 2023. Her husband asked her in mid-January, "Are you still having suicidal thoughts?" And she said no. The defendant's parents visited the family the weekend of January 21st, 2023. They interacted with the defendant in person. The defendant was able to run errands while her mom watched the children. She texted back and forth with her mother, and there was nothing out of the ordinary about these text messages. In fact, the defendant texted her mother on January 22nd, 2023 to ask how her ride home went. During this conversation, the defendant's mother wrote, quote, "Enjoyed seeing everyone this weekend. Nice to see you doing better," end quote. On the night of the killings, Patrick Clancy was interviewed by the police at Beth Israel Deaconess Plymouth Hospital. He told the police that the defendant was having one of her best days. She was smiling and happy, and there was no indication that she was going to harm the kids. No one.
Sorry, let me just pause that again real quick. So on the day that these murders happened, she was having one of her best days. You know what I'm going to say? And I truly believe this. I believe she planned this for a long time. Months. Because after all of this, supposedly being in therapy 5 days a week, supposedly, from what we heard before this arraignment in court, we were told that she was suffering so bad. Her husband said that her condition was rapidly worsening. We were told that she was in therapy 5 days a week. We were told that she was on given 12 different medications. We were told all of these things, which is exactly opposite of what we learned today. Now that's what's ridiculous, because there are 3 dead children here. And everybody spent so much time, like I said, worrying about this lady and wanting to give this woman sympathy for something that she claimed that she was going through. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Who's to say that she didn't want to get rid of these children a long time ago, and this was her plan? To go see these different doctors, to get on these different medications, to pretend like she actually had a problem. Because according to the psychiatrist that just saw her recently, she never had postpartum depression. She had general anxiety disorder. Do you know how many people suffer from general, from that? Do you know how many? Thousands, millions, probably. And they didn't kill anybody. All right. And, not for nothing, but I will say that it is very weird to me that she got her husband out of the home, and the place that she chose to end her children's lives was down in his office. I think that's weird.
No one at all described her as acting like a zombie in the days leading up to the murder or on the day of the murders themselves. On February 5th, 2023, this past Sunday at 1:35 p.m., while sitting with Dr. Paul Zeisel, the psychologist hired by defense counsel to evaluate her mental state, the defendant used Dr. Zeisel's cell phone to call her husband. She left a voicemail stating that she loved him. Yesterday, on February 6, 2023, at 10:09 a.m., she again used Dr. Zeisel's cell phone to call her husband. This time he answered, and during this call, the defendant stated that after he left the house that night, she killed the kids because she heard a voice and had, quote, a moment of psychosis, end quote.
So, February 5th, she calls her husband and tells him that the reason that she killed the kids was because she heard a voice, a male voice, that told her to do it. She's never heard voices before. There's no history of this behavior with her. I mean, no history of hearing voices. You know what? I mean, this woman, oh man, I can't. All right.
Quote. He asked her what voices she heard, and she said she heard a man's voice telling her to kill the kids and kill herself because it was her last chance. Patrick Clancy told the police the defendant had never heard voices before. He also told the police the defendant had never used the word psychosis to him before. The first time she used that word psychosis was when she was with the doctor hired by defense counsel and using his cell phone. The defendant actually wrote a note on her phone on October 25th, approximately 3 months before this happened, October 25th, 2022. She wrote, quote, I think I sort of resent my other children because they prevent me from treating Cal like my first baby. And I know that's not fair to them. I know that. I was feeling so depressed last evening when Cora and Dawson came home from school. I know it runs off on them, so we had a pretty rough evening. I want to feel love and connection with all of my kids. She then wrote that she wants to have more kids eventually. The children were killed by ligature strangulation. Ligature strangulation causes the victim to become unconscious anywhere from 10 seconds up to a minute. The more the victim struggles, the longer it takes. After the victim is unconscious, the ligature must be held in place with force, squeezing the neck for up to an additional 4 to 5 minutes to cause death. Therefore, she had to strangle each of them to unconsciousness and then make sure the bands were squeezing their little necks for several minutes.
Five minutes it would have taken for her children to be gone. I mean, how anybody could have sympathy for her is freaking beyond me. I don't get it. It makes no sense. This woman killed her children, and she is pleading not guilty. Not freaking guilty. She woke up, knew she killed her kids, asked for an attorney, and wants to plead not guilty. Because she according, quote unquote, had a moment of psychosis. Just out of nowhere. Just a moment. Okay.
She could have changed her mind at any point during that time and removed those bands from their necks, and she did not. The defendant did not take advantage of the situation when her husband left the home that night. She created the situation, and she used Apple Maps to make sure she would have enough time to strangle each child before her husband returned from where she had sent him. The defendant is a danger to herself and others. She planned these murders, gave herself the time and privacy needed to commit the murders, and then she strangled each child in the place where they should have felt the safest, at home with their mom. She did so with deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty. And to supplement what the defense counsel has provided, I have a statement of bail argument to file with the court. And the domestic violence court. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
Okay, now I want to read this to you. Hold on, let me get it here. So she, again, hold on, let me make sure I got the right page. Okay, now she brings this up at some point in this. She says, this was found on October 25th, 2022. This was a note that Lindsay had written, a journal entry. I think I resent my other children because they prevent me from treating Kale like my first baby. I know that's not fair to them. I was feeling so depressed last evening when Cora and Dawson came home from school. I know it rubs off on them, so it was a pretty rough evening. I want to feel love and connection with all of my kids. She then wrote that she wants to have more kids eventually. Okay, now remember when I was in one of my previous videos about this, that I was telling you guys that they had this honeymoon type of relationship up until they had these children, right? Now, I was wrong as far as thinking that this is how the father was thinking. I think this is how Lindsay was thinking, right? Because it just came out that she had written this letter to one of her friends who was having a baby. And at the end of the letter, she said, one of the most important things is you need to maintain and, take care of your relationship. She's talking about with her husband. She said it's really hard to do when you have kids, right? That's what she was telling her. Kind of like how these kids were obviously an inconvenience to Lindsay. And you know how the husband said that their relationship got diametrically better as her condition got worse? So what if it was that? What if it was that Lindsay was sick of living the life? She was sick of the kids. She wanted the romantic life back. She planned on getting rid of these children. And in the last few months, okay, her and her husband have gotten a lot closer. They've spent a lot more time together, almost like he got the honeymoon phase back with her. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say here? Because it makes no sense that he would say that their relationship was getting much better as her condition was getting much worse, which we now know was not true. Her condition was not getting much worse. She had anxiety. Again, who doesn't have anxiety today? There's millions of people with it. She was on 3 medications at the time of these murders, not 12, like they had previously said. She searched how long it would take to order takeout, and she sent her husband there, knowing exactly that she had 25 minutes plus a little extra because she sent him to the store. She planned the whole thing. And then she wakes up and asks for a freaking attorney because she knew that she had killed her kids. And she knew that she had already spent months setting up this defense, that she was going to claim insanity because she had a moment of psychosis. And all of the people that donated to help put money towards her defense, man, I not for nothing, but I tried to tell people it didn't make sense. When it doesn't make sense, you need to look into it more. That's all I'm saying. So that woman committed murder. She killed 3 of her children. She planned it. She absolutely 100% deserves to be charged for every single one of them charges. Absolutely. Is there anybody that still feels sympathy for her? Is there anybody that still feels sorry for her? Now can we put the focus back on the real victims here, those babies? That she had to, they said it would take anywhere from 10 seconds to 1 full minute, depending on how much the person was wiggling around, fighting it, for them to go unconscious. And then 5 minutes, she had to stand there and strangle those babies. Each one of them, 5 minutes. And then again, she made very superficial cuts to her wrist and to her neck. Yes, she's got some back injuries. Back broken bones. Yes, she has got some broken ribs. But guess what? She's alive. She's alive, and she gets to now defend herself. She gets to now go on with life. And they said that she is not paralyzed. She can move her feet. She can move her toes. She can move her arms. Those babies are the real victims here. And if anybody can feel any sympathy towards her after this, or defend her after this, and try to hide it behind something that she didn't even have, then there's something wrong with you. And it's not right, because a lot of women suffer from postpartum depression. A lot of women do. But this woman didn't. And she got sympathy from all these women out there. All to find out today that it was all wrong. That is what's going on. That is reality. Now, please, can we please get back to worrying, to focusing on the lives that were lost here. And everybody stop feeling so sorry for this woman who committed this crime. Her own children. This was a planned thing. And I don't get it. Because waking up and her knowing what she did, and her husband knowing that she did not have this illness, that she did not have postpartum depression. Her husband knowing that, for him, I don't understand the forgiveness. I don't understand how after 3 days, he could forgive her, knowing she did this, knowing she planned this thing. He tells you, he told them in his own words that she was fine. So I don't understand that. And I don't understand her doing it in his office in the basement. That's just weird to me. But she was totally aware of what she was doing that entire time she was doing it. She looked at her children and she ended their life, and she was in her right sound mind when she did it. This is crazy. It is. It is insane to me. So, I mean, that's my take on it, and that's just what it is. You know, if you guys let me know in the comments below what you guys think, but this woman absolutely needs to pay for what she's done, and everyone needs to stop feeling sorry for her. She did this. She knew what she was doing, and she did it. And I will say this again. Her babies, you know, I had to have been fighting her. Like, you know, her 5-year-old daughter had to have been like, Mommy, what is going on? And the fact that she could do that in her right sound mind. See, that's what people don't understand. People want to say, well, she must be crazy, right? Because who could do that? But that's just what some people do. There is no, you know what I mean? There is no understanding it. Some people are just that freaking sick in the head. Some people just don't, you know, they love their kids, but they get sick of them. They don't want them around. They wish they had the life they had before the kids. And I believe that's exactly what we are looking at here. Some woman who wanted the romance back, who wanted that life back, that single life where she could just focus on a relationship, where she would, you know, she had resentment towards her children. That's what I see. That's what I see. So everybody, please hit that thumbs up. Please sub to the channel if you have not done so already. Anybody who wants to become a member, links are down in the description below. Anybody who wants to donate, links are down in the description below. I love you guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe. Keep asking those hard questions and keep spreading that light. Have a good night.